This is the Real Estate Investing Abundance Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Allen. I know you're excited to get into today's show, but I have a very exciting announcement to share with you before moving to the show. We've just launched a complimentary and comprehensive webinar that, among other things, shows you how to legally use passive real estate investing to reduce your taxes, recession-proof your nest egg, and take the sting out of inflation. If you are curious to learn more, go to stevetalker.com/webinar. It is complimentary and only takes a couple of minutes of your time. Once again, that is stevetalker.com/webinar. I'll see you in the webinar. Enjoy today's show. Hello, enlightened investors, and welcome back to Real Estate Investing Abundance. Thank you so much for being with us today. It is a pleasure and a joy to have you as always. And with us today is a wonderful woman. And we are going to take a intimate look at investor relations for busy professionals. And Pili Yarusi is the person to talk about these things. Pili loves to help people, and she leads from Aloha in all things that she does. She is a native Hawaiian. She is a founder and the Investor Education and Relations Director for Yarusi Holdings, a multifamily investment firm that has acquired over 3,500 units since 2016. Pili is a co-founder and coach at Figure Multifamily, focusing on real estate syndication and multifamily investing and the training of others on the success formula for buying apartment buildings. Pili is also a co-host of the Multifamily Live Podcast and provides actionable content and tools to help build and strengthen our multifamily businesses. And just for transparency, I am a member of the Figure Multifamily Mastermind and coaching program, and it has been a wonderful experience for me to be involved in that. So Pili, take us into the show and share a memorable experience from your formative years that may have been key to who you are today.
Well, aloha, everyone. I am super, super excited, super honored to be on your podcast. It has been a while since we've been on a podcast together. So super excited. Formative years. Let's dig deep. We're not going to go too far back. We're going to go back to 2013. Actually, let's really dig deep. Let's go to 2012. Before Jason and I had already known each other for almost 10 years at that point. And Jason's my husband, for anybody that doesn't know me, Jason Yarusi, and I'm Pili Yarusi of Yarusi Holdings. But back then we were bartenders. We were working in the arts. We were in NYC. We bartended in one of the hugest outdoor restaurants called the Frying Pan. If you're ever in New York City, go check it out. Also known as Pier 66 Maritime. So I was done. I was done with it all. I did not want to bartend anymore. I did not want NYC anymore. I was in a really bad relationship. Or I don't even want to, because I'm all about taking responsibility. So I don't even want to blame it on the relationship. I was in a bad mindset myself. I take responsibility for that. I was in a bad place. I left New York. I went back to Hawaii. I had no plans on coming back. And I had to find myself again. I had to take that time for myself to realize that I could do it, that I had to find that strong woman within me. I had to find my next steps, what I wanted to do next. And so I went back home. At 32 years old, I went back to my parents' house in Hawaii, and I just laid low for a couple of months. And it took Jason saying, hey, come meet me in San Francisco. Let's have some fun. I had friends in LA and San Francisco. So I was like, you know what? This will be great. I get to reconnect with old friends. I get to see people I haven't seen in probably a decade. And I really got to find myself with that trip. A few months later, I moved back to New York, and Jason and I started our relationship. The second story, if I may. So number one, the lesson from there is take some time to find yourself before taking your next big leap. Because I took my next big leap with Jason. I've moved back to New York. I was one more year in the restaurant industry because that's what we knew how to do. And at that time, we also jumped into his father's construction company because Hurricane Sandy had just happened. If you were in the East Coast, 2012, 2013, Hurricane Sandy wrecked the East Coast. And my father-in-law now has a house lifting company. So we jumped in because he went from having maybe 3 to maybe 5 lifts a year to doing about 100 in that year. I think even more. So we jumped in. Jason took over operations. I took over sales. I took all the phone calls. This is a really, really good leaping point, getting into house flipping, because a year passes. We do all this. We decide to take the next leap. We get pregnant. I'm pregnant. We're pregnant with our first son. And I also get my real estate license. We also open up a house flipping company and a wholesaling company all in the same year. So for anyone out there that's afraid to take that first leap or take that next leap, just realize that you can do it. No matter what obstacles that you think are in your way, no matter what kind of growth you're having in other aspects of your life, you can take that next step.
Wonderful example and a marvelous story. I can relate to that in my life. When I have really stepped out and taken a step, that period of time is just cram-packed with opportunities. And I can think of the stagnant periods of time before those periods of time. But when I take that step, suddenly those opportunities are there. And they just listening to you say that you all got pregnant, you started 2 businesses, it just sounds so completely and totally overwhelming. But
it was.
Yeah,
I'm not going to lie. It was very overwhelming. I'm not superhuman. I can't do it all. But having the right people around you and surrounding yourself with the right people and the right mindset, everything.
Yeah. It's while overwhelming, I can think back of those times in my life, but they're invigorating in ways that when I'm in those stagnant periods, I just don't find that invigoration. So, yeah. Well, let's move into real estate specific here. And specifically, since my target audience are professionals who fulfilled in the work of their calling. I mean, they've spent money and time and effort to get into their professions, and they are engrossed in developing those professions and finding recognition in those professions. So they don't have spare time. So why would we even want these people to invest passively in real estate endeavors?
Well, number one, we would want them to invest passively in our real estate endeavors because we have had multiple conversations with them. You have, for instance, let's take someone that is listening to this podcast right now. Whether or not you know Alan or I, what I would ask you to do is to reach out to Alan, whether by email or by DM, or leave a comment below on the podcast and let him know that you're interested in learning more. I get so many people and I meet so many people that way, using my podcast, using my social platform. And this is how I meet people. And I want to have, and so should you, a conversation with them. So what we would want you to do, oh, amazing listener of Alan's, is to reach out to him, have a conversation with him, and get to know Alan on a more broader level. Because per the SEC, from what we do as real estate syndicators, we need to make sure that we know you, that we know that you are financially able to invest in our syndications, or even if you're giving us private money for a flip, for a wholesale, which I don't do anymore, but for any flippers and wholesalers out there, if you're listening to this, you should also be aware of the SEC regulations around raising capital. So after you have that first conversation, I would want you to have at least 2 more conversations. It's not a hard and fast rule, but we usually go by the rule of 3 touches to make sure that we absolutely know you from a financial standpoint and hopefully from a personal standpoint too, because I fully believe that you're not just investing in a good deal. Yes, the numbers have to work. You also are investing in the person. So by finding out the type of person that Alan is, the type of person that I am, you get to know who you're investing with and my partners. If I have multiple partners, I would want you and I would ask you to get to know them as well on more than a superficial level, and then understand what your financial capabilities are. If you have, say my minimum for one of my capital raises is $25,000, I don't want you to give me your last $25,000. That's not being financially capable. If you have an extra $5,000, $10,000, I would introduce you to some of my flippers and wholesalers that might be able to put that capital to work. Until you have a good financial background, good financial standing, I would want you to work on that. So why am I saying all of this? And I could actually go on. This is the reason why you want to invest passively with Alan or I, because we're going to make sure that you are educated first. That is the main point of this. This is why Alan has a podcast. He wants to make sure that you are educated, that you know exactly what you're getting into when you get into it, that if you have questions, you know you can go to him, you can go to his guests, because they are people that he's vetted, that he knows, likes, and trusts that have your best at hand. We want to make sure that we are fiduciaries for our investors' money. That doesn't mean I am promising you the world. I never promise profits. Anyone who does is lying. We're not supposed to do that. But what I can tell you is that I will put my best foot forward with all of my background, with my over 10 years of experience in real estate investing, and I will make that go to work for you. So that's why you should invest passively with us. Why you should invest passively, though, is because if you are a busy professional, this is a whole different level, right, Alan? If you are a busy professional, if you are a doctor, if you have a 9-to-5, if you have a corporate job that you absolutely love, but you want to make your capital work further for you, this is why you come to talk to people, to investors like Alan or I, that can put that capital to work, that you don't have to learn how to do the nuts and bolts of what we do. You should understand it, but you won't have to do it yourself on a day-to-day basis. Did that answer your question, Alan?
Fabulously.
Fantastic.
And yeah, I mean, I just could not agree more. I love to hear from my listeners, and I love to form personal one-on-one relationships with people, certainly those people who are investing with us. And I know that you do as well. And that you, in fact, that is where you put most of your time and effort in terms of your family's business, is developing these investor relationships. And Chad was just on the show before you were, so his episode will come before yours. Chad loves numbers, and so we talked about numbers with Chad. I want to talk about relationships today, and so give us some stories of investors that you have worked with passively.
Ooh, I got a good one.
No names. Let's keep this anonymous. But give us some stories of relationships you've had with investors.
So if I may, I'm going to start off with the story of Chad King.
Okay.
I know you said no names, but you mentioned Chad, so I'm going to start off with him. This is not so. We are partners on the active side. But I'd like to think that we invest in each other passively too. So how we met Chad was that we actually met him through a passive investor of ours. And I'm going to actually mention a name here because he's also a partner of ours, and I'd be remiss not to mention him, Bill Allen. So we met Bill Allen within the seven-figure system when we were flipping and wholesaling houses. He was one of our mentors in seven-figure flipping. We were actually students together, and he elevated himself to mentor status and then bought the company. So right previous to him purchasing the company, we talked to Justin Williams, who owned the company previous, and Bill, because he said we have to bring Bill in. And Jason and I went to them, and this was some years ago. This was probably 7 years ago. And we went to them. We're like, we are getting fully into multifamily. We want to start something with you. We want to start a program with you. We fully believe people who are in the flipping and wholesaling industry will jump into multifamily at some point, but they weren't ready at that point. But what they were ready for is to invest passively. So this goes to what I love to say is everything you need is already in your phone. You already know most of the investors that you can raise capital from. They're in your phone. And Bill Allen happened to be one. So Bill has actually invested in, I would say, 98% of our deals, especially before he learned that he could be on the active side as well, on the GP, the general partner side. He invested in all of our deals. And when he decided to move over to the GP side, one of his acquisition specialists, Chad King, found an amazing deal here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And that's how we started our partnership. So investing passively can open up a whole lot of different avenues for you to make capital, for you to understand, hey, maybe I want to go on the active side. So Bill is a great example of someone who started on the passive side of multifamily real estate. He was a house flipper and wholesaler. He brought in his acquisition specialist, who is now one of our partners, Chad King, and we moved forward from there. So what started off as passive investing is now actively investing. But the thing is, we all passively invest in all of our deals as well. That's one big story. Another one of my stories. Oh, so my cousin, I will not bring her name into this. So my cousin DMs me. She has my cell phone number. She has access to me through aunts and uncles, but she DMs me through Instagram. We start, and previous to this, she's a bodybuilder, and I had gotten into CrossFit a couple of years ago. I'm huge into fitness. Jason and I are huge into fitness. So I followed her. I followed her in Instagram, how her journey was going. And I used to comment all the time, how I was jealous of her arms, but that's besides the point. So she DMs me. She's like, Pili, I've been following your story for the past 2 years. How do I get into what you're doing? And I was like, just ask. And we start conversing, and we start creating, even though we had known each other from children. But the thing is, how many of your cousins would you give hundreds of thousands of dollars to? Probably not very many of them. So we had to get to know each other on a whole nother level. And she had to get to know me on the level of an investor, not the cousin who I used to throw firecrackers with at age like 10. So we got to know each other. We built up a relationship. And when she was ready, she invested passively in her first large multifamily deal with me. But another thing I want to point out with this story, especially for anyone that's listening that might be raising capital, especially trying to raise capital from family, to date, and this is 10 years now, the only 2 family members that I've personally raised from my side of the family, Jason's side of the family has been more open to it. My side of the family is 2. And maybe it's because I haven't asked enough. Maybe it's because I haven't put it in front of them enough. but my sister and my cousin and one of my cousins. So don't expect people to just throw money at you, especially your family members. What you need to do is nurture those relationships from that position, from the position of someone who is a fiduciary for their capital, from the position of someone who knows what they're doing and can help you grow your capital. So for any of my passive investors out there that's listening to this, this is what you should expect from those investors who are trying to raise capital from you, from those investors whose podcast you jump on. You should expect them to have conversation with you, to want to know about you, to want to know how your life is going, to know about what's happening in your life financially and otherwise. I mean, as much as you want to share, but we should know what's happening with you.
Enlightened investors, if you haven't done so already, be sure and click that like button and also click that share so others can take advantage of the content. And finally, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single one of our upcoming episodes.
2 stories enough?
2 stories enough? Do you have some more stories?
Oh, if I dig deeper.
I find them fascinating. One thing that as you're talking, a question arises in my mind. Only 2 of your family members have come forward to invest with you. And I don't think that's at all unusual. And even with friends who have known us for a long time, I think when we go into these conversations of real estate investing, they feel like they're being propositioned, even if we are just tossing this out in a very, very informal way. I think they immediately kind of put up their shields that, oh, I'm going to be propositioned here. Do you find that to be true or not? And if so, how do you work around that?
Yes and no. So if it really depends on your delivery, right? I believe your capital raise started years ago before you even found out about real estate. It starts with the person that you are. It starts with conversations that you've had with your friends previously. It starts with what happened in high school with that one friend that you're talking to today. It starts with the conversations that you're having with them. If you're starting off the conversation with, hey, guess what? I'm doing real estate. For instance, my cousin. If I had just gone directly to her, and I was not raising capital from her. I didn't even think to ask her. She asked me. So this goes to show you, if you're interested in other people's lives, they will be interested in what you do. So it does not come off as a proposition. When it comes down to it, yes, you have to make the ask. You have to tell them, guess what? I have XYZ Smith Street deal. These are the numbers. Hey, take a look at it. Let me know if you want to put in a soft commit. But if you start off with that as your conversation, that's a proposition.
That's a proposition, yeah.
What you want to do is get to know people. Let them get to know you by putting information out on social media, by letting people know what you do, how it can help them, so that in time, people start coming to you to ask you questions, which has happened. Those aren't the only family members that have asked me about real estate. Those are the only family members that were ready at the time. I'm going to be doing this for probably the rest of my life. So they have a lot of time, praise God, hopefully, until to get into my real estate deals. So if it feels like a proposition, it probably is. But the catch is to, again, get to know your family members, get to know your sphere of influence, have conversations with them, and let them know what's happening. And if they tell you no, that doesn't mean the end. That means keep on talking with them, keep on letting them know what you do, because I fully believe that if they have the capital, this type of real estate, this type of passive real estate investing is the way to go.
Yeah, beautiful. And yeah, it is all about relationships. And I mean, that's the way I like it to come to me, is for them to come to me. And I mean, I just don't like reaching out and propositioning people in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, I have to stop though, because I want to make sure that your audience members don't think they can, if for anyone that's getting to active investing, and if you're raising capital, you cannot just sit back and let people come to you. Some people will, like with my cousin, with my sister, with a lot of my investors today, but you have to be actively going out there and letting people know what you're doing on a constant, consistent basis. Newsletters, posts, emails, phone calls, follow-ups, follow up, follow up, follow up. If somebody comments on something that you post, comment back. This is how you start these relationships that turn into these partnerships. You have to keep on working at it, and you cannot be afraid to quote proposition. So I want to make sure that we're not getting proposition and sales pitch mixed, because letting people know what you do and letting people know about a deal that you have, depending on your delivery, is you helping them. So if you're coming from a place of you're helping them, of your giving, of your letting people know, of your helping them to raise themselves up, that's a whole lot different than a sales pitch where you're like, give me money, give me money, give me money. So a lot of it can be mindset, right? If you always think that you're pitching, then chances are you're going to come off that way. But if you have the mindset of giving, of helping, of allowing others to be raised up as you raise yourself up, that is a whole different mindset, and it comes off a lot differently. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that is, well, it is beyond a mindset. It becomes a lifestyle. And, you know, I do this because I totally do believe that I'm helping people, that I'm not a financial wizard, and I haven't spent my life studying finances and the economies and all of that. But I've looked at it enough to know that there are very, very few other investment opportunities that can match what we can offer in passive real estate investments. And I truly and totally and completely believe that. And so when I look out at friends who are doing okay as professionals, and they're putting money away in their 401ks and their IRAs, I think that's great and that's wonderful, but I know that they are depriving themselves of multiple opportunities to multiply those investments if they would just avail themselves to private placement real estate investments there. So I think it becomes a lifestyle, and I think the more that we do it, it just becomes an organic process. And I mean, I'm developing all of those funnels and everything that you're talking about, and that's certainly why I'm doing a podcast and why I'm developing other ways and means of reaching out to people, so that all of that is happening in a very, very organic way. And the interest is there, and the interest is peaked, and then those conversations just become very organic.
Yes, and they should be.
Yeah.
Money doesn't have to be something that's scary to talk about. Right. Money doesn't have to be like this big taboo subject. We've made sure with Jason and I at our dinner table, we make sure to talk about money. We make sure to talk about, like, for instance, my son wants a toy. We talk about the price. We talk about what money he has available. We talk about whether or not this is going to be maybe a birthday present or maybe a Christmas present. And we talk about if he can afford it, why not buy it? But if he does buy that, is that an investment? Like, we have these conversations. So if, for instance, Legos, is that an investment? Now he knows. He says, yes, mommy, because it's an investment in my education. I get to build something. And I'm like, okay. And when it breaks, I get to reuse the pieces and make something a whole lot different. So having these conversations with your children, having these conversations with your friends, having these conversations is very, very, very important. And coming from a place of real money conversations need to just be a fact of life, a fact of reality. I didn't grow up that way. I didn't know how much money my parents made. It wasn't my business. It wasn't my business to know how they took care of the rent, how they took care of all this. I asked them why they worked. None of my business. All I knew is that they had to work for money. Now we know better. We can make our money work for us.
Yes. Make our money work for us, and we can engage in our passions and our desires. Mm-hmm. Well, I just hate this, but we're coming to the end of our time here. So let's go into our meaning of life questions. And so if you would, you may have already done this, but share with us one of your most difficult setbacks and how did you come through that? And what was the lesson you learned from that? And remember, these are short answers, not essays.
Okay, difficult setback. So it's not so much a setback, it is getting pregnant. So getting pregnant can seem like a setback, but for me, it was growth. It was a way to push myself forward because Jason and I were growing our family the same time we were growing our businesses. And this is from 2013 to we had our last child in 2018. So 3 kids, multiple businesses. If we can do that, so can you. I'll leave it there.
That's a challenge for sure. Yes, indeed. And a lot of people don't even, a lot of people just think you just go get pregnant and that's the end of it. And please, please, please don't do that. Children are responsibilities and they need lots of love and attention.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So don't do that to your children. Don't do that to yourself. No. So what are 3 good things that you've experienced in the last 24 hours?
3 good things in the last 24 hours. I woke up and all my children were sleeping on top of me. I consider that a good thing because one day they won't do that.
That's for sure.
As I was leaving the house, my children all gave me kisses, even though I was running late for a meeting. And I gave them a kiss, did not argue with them. They wanted to give mommy a kiss as she was walking out. And walking into the office, I gave my husband a kiss.
Oh, wonderful. Well, how are you putting your success as an investor and entrepreneur to work to create universal well-being for all beings?
Ooh, how am I doing this universal-wise? I'm just letting people know what I do. I believe I can help people. All I need to do is get out there and let them know what I do. And hopefully I can help more people. And that number of people that I get to help exponentially increases every single day.
And our last question, imagine you've come to the end of your life and you lay on your deathbed. What do you look back on as your greatest joy and sense of fulfillment?
I'm hoping in that moment, I'm not necessarily looking back. I'm looking at my children, my grandchildren, and my husband and my God, knowing that I lived a helpful, productive, love-filled life.
Pili, it's been a delight, and time together has just been way too short. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Enlightened investors, wait, don't go just yet. I just want to remind you about our recently launched webinar, that you will not want to miss. If you're at all curious and would like to learn more about how real estate investing can diversify your investment portfolio, alleviate the anxiety associated with Wall Street swings, leverage your 401ks and IRAs to substantially increase the return on your investment, and do all of this with turnkey, hands-off, passive real estate investments, then you'll want to immediately go to steedtalker.com/webinar. In the webinar, we'll also address the common dubious investment schemes that you want to avoid. To access the webinar, go to steedtalker.com/webinar. I look forward to seeing you in the webinar.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Estate Investing Abundance, brought to you by Steve Talker Capital, a company working for passionate professionals like you to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steve Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steve Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures, great and small, flourish abundantly. For resources to develop your financial independence, connect with us at stevetalker.com.